Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is standing in front of a mirror, trying to understand why the spots keep spreading. They started with one, then a handful. Now they seem to multiply faster than any cream, any remedy, any dermatologist visit can address. Every 40 seconds, a new search begins. Someone typing, "Why are my age spots getting worse?" If that search brought you here, keep watching. Because what you are about to hear is not what most people expect. Age spots, the medical term is solar lentigines or hyperpigmentation, are not simply the price of getting older. They are a signal, a communication from systems inside your body that have fallen out of balance. And signals, unlike inevitabilities, can be addressed. I'm Dr. Alistair Pembroke, and you're watching Dr. Alistair Pembroke. If you want health information delivered with clarity, accuracy, and respect for your intelligence, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Because this channel is built for exactly that. What you will learn today: the 5 internal mechanisms that drive pigmentation, what is happening inside your body at this moment, and concrete tools you can begin using this week. Let's start with the biology. Deep within the base layer of your skin with specialized cells called melanocytes. These cells have one primary function: to produce a pigment called melanin. Melanin is what gives your skin its color, and more importantly, it is your skin's natural defense system against ultraviolet radiation. In a young, well-regulated body, melanocytes distribute melanin evenly across the skin's surface. The result is consistent, uniform tone. When UV light arrives, melanocytes respond proportionally, a mild, even tan that fades as the threat passes. But, under the influence of specific internal and external factors we will identify precisely in this video, some melanocytes begin operating erratically. Certain cells accelerate into overdrive, flooding a concentrated area with excess pigment. Others slow down entirely. The result is an uneven landscape of dark patches against lighter surrounding skin. The critical point is this: age alone does not cause melanocytes to malfunction. What changes them are identifiable physiological processes, and identifiable processes can be understood, supported, and in many cases, meaningfully improved. That is the foundation everything else in this video builds upon. Solar lentigines do not appear overnight. They develop along a timeline that spans years, even decades, of accumulated cellular stress. By the time a spot becomes visible, the underlying imbalance has typically been building for a long time. The primary risk factors are well established: cumulative UV exposure over a lifetime, fair skin types with less natural melanin protection, a history of sunburns particularly in younger years, advancing age, and genetic predisposition. But research increasingly points to a second layer of risk: internal factors that amplify the skin's vulnerability to external triggers. These include the functional status of the liver, the composition of the gut microbiome, systemic inflammation, vitamin D levels, and the body's chronic stress load. None of these factors operate in isolation. They interact, compounding one another in ways that routine checkups rarely capture. This is why 2 people can have similar sun exposure histories and dramatically different outcomes. External exposure is part of the equation. Internal physiology is the other part, and it is the part over which you have the most meaningful influence. Today, we will address both. The connection between liver function and skin condition is one of the most underappreciated relationships in clinical dermatology. Most people think of the liver in terms of alcohol and medication. The broader picture is more significant. Your liver performs over 500 documented functions simultaneously. It filters blood, metabolizes fats, neutralizes environmental compounds, produces bile, and stores essential vitamins. One of its essential roles is processing the constant stream of substances from food, water, and the environment that enter the body each day. As we age, hepatic blood flow decreases. Studies have documented reductions of approximately 20 to 40% by the mid-70s, and liver volume can decrease by a similar margin. A smaller, slower perfused liver has reduced processing capacity. When the liver cannot keep pace with its processing load, other elimination pathways compensate, including the skin. Your skin is a genuine excretory organ, not merely a surface barrier. When metabolic byproducts that have not been fully processed pass through skin tissue, they can irritate cells in the deeper layers, including melanocytes. Chronically irritated melanocytes produce pigment chaotically rather than evenly. Practical liver support does not require expensive supplements. Warm water with fresh lemon first thing in the morning encourages bile flow. Traditional bitter foods, dandelion root prepared as tea, for example, have been used in European herbal medicine for generations and are recognized in the European Pharmacopoeia for traditional digestive support. Eliminating trans fats, found in partially hydrogenated oils in processed foods, reduces an unnecessary burden on hepatic processing. Researchers studying what is called the gut-skin axis are uncovering a meaningful relationship between intestinal health and the condition of the skin. The evidence, while still emerging in some areas, points in a consistent direction. A disrupted gut microbiome is associated with increased systemic inflammation. And chronic systemic inflammation is one of the key drivers of melanocyte dysregulation. Your gut contains trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and other microbes that collectively regulate immune responses, synthesize vitamins, and maintain the integrity of the intestinal lining. When beneficial bacteria are abundant, they maintain a tight barrier between the intestinal environment and the bloodstream. When harmful bacteria dominate and this balance is disrupted, that barrier becomes compromised, and inflammatory signals can enter systemic circulation. This low-grade, chronic inflammation, producing no obvious symptoms, no fever, no localized pain, is associated with skin problems, including irregular pigmentation at measurably higher rates in affected individuals. Restoring microbial balance does not require expensive probiotic supplements. Traditionally fermented foods are among the richest natural sources of live beneficial bacteria. Plain, unsweetened kefir, ideally with a short shelf life, indicating high live culture content. Taken before bed, allows bacteria to integrate into the microbiome during the gut's natural overnight repair phase. Homemade fermented cabbage, prepared with nothing but cabbage and salt, delivers similar benefit. And beneficial gut bacteria require fiber to thrive. Plain whole oats are an accessible, inexpensive daily source. UV radiation is the primary external trigger for solar lentigines. When ultraviolet light reaches melanocytes, its signals defend the tissue. Melanin production accelerates. In a well-regulated system, this is a healthy, proportional response. The problem arises when melanocytes are already in a state of chronic irritation due to liver burden, gut-driven inflammation, or other systemic factors. A cell already operating erratically will respond to UV exposure disproportionately. Rather than an even defensive response, pigment surges into concentrated points. This explains why individuals applying daily sunscreen still see their spots intensify. The external protection addresses only part of the mechanism. Internal antioxidant protection works alongside topical measures. Antioxidants are compounds that neutralize free radicals, unstable molecules generated in skin tissue under UV exposure that damage cellular structures. 3 foods with well-documented photoprotective properties deserve particular attention. Beta-carotene, found in carrots, accumulates in skin tissue and measurably increases UV resistance, confirmed by multiple meta-analyses. It requires dietary fat for absorption, so carrots should be eaten with a small amount of fat. Lycopene, particularly concentrated in cooked or processed tomatoes, is one of the most potent natural antioxidants studied in dermatological research. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste daily has been shown in clinical research to increase skin resistance to UV-induced damage. Green tea, loose leaf, brewed strong, delivers catechins that provide direct protection to skin cells at the cellular level. Sensible sun behavior also matters. Shade during peak hours, a hat, a light long-sleeved layer. But also regular brief sun exposure, because sunlight is how your body produces vitamin D. Which brings us to the next factor. The 5 mechanisms driving hyperpigmentation do not operate independently. They amplify one another. Liver burden elevates systemic inflammation. Gut dysbiosis compounds that inflammation further. Chronic inflammation sensitizes melanocytes to UV triggers. Vitamin D deficiency impairs the immune regulation that would otherwise moderate these processes. Chronic stress drives both inflammation and direct hormonal stimulation of melanin production. Each factor feeds the others. This compounding accelerates with age. The processes that are manageable in your 40s become more aggressive in your 50s and 60s. Skin cell renewal, which in youth takes approximately 28 days, slows to roughly 45 to 60 days by the mid-60s. Damage that was once cleared efficiently now accumulates. The critical window is not a single moment. It is the ongoing period before compounding damage becomes increasingly difficult to address. The earlier each of these internal factors is supported, the more responsive the system will be. Waiting until spots are numerous and established does not make improvement impossible, but it does extend the timeline. There is also a medical urgency worth stating clearly. Any pigmented lesion that changes in size, develops irregular borders, varies in color, or looks different from others on your body should be evaluated by a dermatologist. Seborrheic keratoses, solar lentigines, and melanoma can present similarly to untrained eyes. Self-management applies to benign hyperpigmentation confirmed by clinical evaluation, not to unexamined lesions. That assessment is non-negotiable. Vitamin D deficiency is one of the most prevalent and under-recognized nutritional shortfalls in adults over 60. Studies across multiple countries consistently show that somewhere between 40 and 80% of older adults have insufficient or deficient vitamin D levels. Most have no idea, because low vitamin D produces no sharp locatable symptom. It works systemically and quietly. Vitamin D is involved in immune regulation, in the controlled renewal of skin cells, and in modulating inflammatory processes throughout the body. Research also suggests it influences melanocyte function directly, though the precise mechanisms are still being characterized. What is established is that maintaining adequate vitamin D is associated with healthier skin across multiple measures, and that deficiency is associated with a range of skin and systemic inflammatory problems. Sunlight remains the most efficient source. 15 to 20 minutes of midday sun on uncovered forearms and face during spring and summer months is generally sufficient for vitamin D synthesis. This is free, requires no equipment, and provides the most bioavailable form of the vitamin. Food sources matter particularly in winter months and for those with limited sun access. Herring is one of the most concentrated dietary sources. 100 grams provides more than the full daily recommended intake. Egg yolks contribute meaningfully when consumed regularly. 2 yolks daily provide approximately 30% of the daily target. A teaspoon of cod liver oil daily delivers roughly 450 IU, sufficient to complement sun exposure and dietary sources into a reliable combined strategy. A blood test, serum 25-hydroxyvitamin D, is the standard clinical measure. If you have not had yours tested recently, it is a simple ask at your next appointment. Of the 5 internal factors driving hyperpigmentation, chronic stress is the one that can override all the others if unaddressed. Patients who follow every nutritional protocol, support their liver and gut diligently, and still see new spots appear, often share one common thread: a persistent daily stress load. The mechanism is specific. When the brain registers a threat, whether physical or emotional, real or anticipated, the adrenal glands release stress hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline. These were essential survival mechanisms in our evolutionary history. The problem is that the stress response cannot distinguish between a genuine physical emergency and the chronic background tension of modern daily life. Elevated cortisol drives systemic inflammation, the same inflammatory cascade we have traced through liver burden and gut dysbiosis. But stress also activates a separate and direct pathway. Pro-opiomelanocortin, or POMC, is a precursor protein from which the body manufactures several hormones. Under stress, POMC-derived compounds that include melanocyte-stimulating hormone are released in elevated amounts. More MSH means more direct stimulation of melanin production, independent of UV exposure, independent of liver function. This is why stress management is a clinical variable in skin health, not simply a lifestyle recommendation. The solution is not the elimination of all stress, which is unrealistic. It is training the body to mount a calmer physiological response. Slow diaphragmatic breathing is one of the most evidence-supported techniques for activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the biological counterbalance to the stress response. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4, hold for 7, exhale through the mouth for 8. 4 cycles, 2 minutes. Research confirms this pattern reduces circulating cortisol and improves sleep quality. And deep restorative sleep is when skin performs its most active cellular renewal. If you have noticed pigmented spots that are new, growing, changing in color, have uneven or ragged borders, bleed without trauma, or look distinctly different from other spots on your skin, stop here. This is the first action step. Book an appointment with a dermatologist for a professional skin examination. Not next month, this week. Melanoma and other serious skin conditions can initially resemble benign solar lentigines. A trained dermatologist, using dermoscopy, a specialized imaging technique, can distinguish between them with a level of accuracy that no photograph, app, or symptom list can match. Early detection of skin cancer is one of the most significant factors in outcome. Do not wait. For benign, confirmed hyperpigmentation, the action framework rests on the 5 internal systems discussed in this video. The starting point for this week is straightforward. First, remove obvious liver stressors from your diet. Eliminate partially hydrogenated oils and reduce ultra-processed food. Begin each morning with warm water before eating. Second, introduce a fermented food daily, plain kefir or traditional fermented cabbage. Third, get your vitamin D level tested. Fourth, begin a brief daily breathing practice, 4 cycles of the 4-7-8 technique before bed. Fifth, add a protective antioxidant food to at least 1 meal each day, carrots with fat, tomato paste, or green tea. None of these steps require significant expense. All are actionable before the end of this week. Start with 2 or 3. Consistency over 60 to 90 days produces observable change. The skin's renewal cycle requires time. Understanding your internal status requires information. 3 clinical tests are particularly relevant to the internal mechanisms driving hyperpigmentation and are worth discussing with your physician. Test 1. Serum 25-hydroxyvitamin D, 25-OHD. This is the standard blood test for vitamin D status. Normal laboratory reference ranges typically list sufficiency above 20 nanograms per milliliter, but many endocrinologists and dermatologists consider levels between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter optimal for skin and immune function. If you have not had this tested within the last 12 months, it is a reasonable and inexpensive addition to any routine blood panel. Ask specifically for the 25-OHD test by name. Test 2. High-sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP. CRP is a blood marker of systemic inflammation. Standard CRP testing detects significant acute inflammation. The high-sensitivity version detects the low-grade chronic inflammation associated with gut dysbiosis, liver burden, and stress. Precisely the inflammatory state linked to melanocyte dysregulation. Levels below 1.0 milligrams per liter are associated with low cardiovascular and inflammatory risk. Levels above 3.0 milligrams per liter indicate elevated chronic inflammation. Ask for HSCRP as part of a cardiovascular or wellness panel. Test 3. Complete metabolic panel, specifically reviewing liver function markers, ALT, AST, GGT, and albumin. These markers provide a window into hepatic health and can identify subclinical liver stress before it becomes clinically significant. GGT is particularly sensitive to diet, alcohol, and environmental compound load. A CMP is a standard test available through any general practitioner. These three tests together provide a meaningful picture of the internal terrain connected to hyperpigmentation, and all three inform your overall health beyond skin appearance. Prevention of hyperpigmentation deepening or spreading operates across the same 5 systems we have discussed throughout this video. Each strategy is grounded in published research. Strategy 1. Daily antioxidant intake. The evidence for dietary antioxidants providing measurable photoprotection is robust. Meta-analyses confirm that beta-carotene consumption increases skin resistance to UV damage. Clinical trials demonstrate that tomato paste consumption, specifically the cooked concentrated form that maximizes lycopene bioavailability, reduces UV-induced skin damage markers. Green tea catechins have shown protective effects in multiple controlled studies. This is not alternative medicine. It is nutritional biochemistry with peer-reviewed support. Strategy 2. Consistent sleep of 7 to 8 hours in a dark, cool environment. Skin cell renewal is predominantly governed by circadian rhythms. The majority of cellular repair happens during deep sleep stages. Chronic sleep disruption is associated with accelerated skin aging and impaired barrier recovery. This is one of the most powerful and zero-cost interventions available. Strategy 3. Daily movement for 30 minutes minimum. Physical activity improves hepatic blood flow, supports gut motility, reduces systemic inflammation, and improves sleep quality, addressing 4 of the 5 internal factors simultaneously. It doesn't have to be intense. Walking at a brisk pace for 30 minutes produces measurable systemic anti-inflammatory effects within weeks. Strategy 4. Year-round UV awareness. Not avoidance, awareness. Wearing a broad-spectrum SPF 30 or higher sunscreen on regularly exposed areas during peak UV hours is the most direct external prevention measure supported by decades of evidence. Age is a clinical variable in hyperpigmentation, not merely a backdrop. The mechanisms that are relatively mild in their effects in your 30s and 40s operate with greater force as decades accumulate. In your 40s, the liver's processing capacity begins to measurably decline. Hepatic blood flow decreases gradually, and the liver's reserve capacity, its ability to handle increased load, diminishes. Skin cell turnover, once approximately 28 days in your 20s, begins to lengthen. Spots that form begin to persist longer. In your 50s, cumulative UV exposure compounds decades of earlier damage. Melanocytes that have been intermittently irritated for years become more prone to erratic behavior. Vitamin D synthesis in skin becomes less efficient with age. The same UV exposure that generated adequate vitamin D in your 30s produces less in your 50s. Gut microbiome diversity also tends to decrease with age, reducing the protective barrier function of the intestinal lining. By your 60s and beyond, skin cell renewal may take 60 to 90 days, more than double the youthful rate. This means both that new spots form more easily, and that improvement, when it comes, takes longer to become visible. This is not discouraging. It is a reason to begin now rather than later. Importantly, younger adults in their 30s are not exempt. Solar lentigines appearing before 40 are a signal worth attending to, rather than dismissing. Genetic predisposition, fair skin, significant sun exposure history, and any of the internal factors described in this video can produce early-onset hyperpigmentation. The five-factor framework applies across age groups. The scientific literature on hyperpigmentation and its drivers has grown substantially in the past 2 decades. Several findings deserve clear, direct communication. On the gut-skin axis, a 2018 paper in Frontiers in Microbiology documented significant associations between gut microbiome composition and skin inflammatory conditions. Subsequent research has continued building the case that systemic inflammation originating in gut dysbiosis reaches the skin via circulating inflammatory mediators. This is an active research area. Some mechanistic details remain to be characterized, but the directional evidence is consistent and growing. On UV and internal antioxidants, research published in the British Journal of Dermatology demonstrated that regular consumption of tomato paste, approximately 55 grams daily over 12 weeks, resulted in measurably reduced UV-induced skin damage compared to control groups. Similar findings exist for beta-carotene supplementation across multiple meta-analyses. On stress and pigmentation, the POMC-MSH pathway linking psychological stress to direct melanocyte stimulation is documented in the Journal of Endocrinology and further reviewed in pigment cell and melanoma research. The relationship between elevated cortisol, increased inflammation, and skin barrier compromise is established across multiple publications. On liver aging, Schmucker's widely cited 2005 review in Aging Cell documented structural and functional changes to the aging liver with clinical relevance to its processing capacity. The practical implication, supporting liver function through diet and lifestyle, follows logically from this physiology. The overall picture these studies paint is not that age spots are curable by diet alone. It is that internal physiology meaningfully contributes to their formation and progression, and internal physiology can be meaningfully supported. Let's bring everything together. 5 internal factors drive hyperpigmentation. Liver function declining with age and increasing metabolic load. Gut microbiome disruption, generating systemic inflammation. UV exposure acting on melanocytes already sensitized by internal imbalance. Vitamin D deficiency impairing immune regulation and cellular renewal. And chronic stress directly stimulating melanin production through the POMC-MSH hormonal pathway. Your 3-step action plan for this week. Step 1. Book a dermatologist appointment if you have any lesions that concern you. Irregular borders, color variation, or changing appearance require professional evaluation. This is not optional. Step 2. Add 1 fermented food and 1 antioxidant food to your daily routine starting today. Kefir before bed and carrots with your main meal, tomato paste in a sauce, or 3 cups of green tea. Step 3. Practice 4 cycles of slow diaphragmatic breathing. 4 counts in, 7 hold, 8 out, every night before sleep. 2 minutes. Begin tonight. Over 60 to 90 days of consistent application, the skin's own renewal processes will have time to reflect the internal changes you have made. The timeline requires patience. The biology is real. And remember, this information supports your body's own function. It does not replace your doctor. It equips you for better, more informed conversations with your healthcare provider, which is exactly what this channel is here to help you do. I'm Dr. Alistair Pembroke. If this video gave you information you can use, please subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs it. Leave a comment below. Which of the 5 internal factors surprised you most? Your engagement helps this channel reach more people who need this information. Take care of your health. It is the foundation of everything. Medical disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding your specific health situation.